Next question comes in a written form from Eric. He's had multiple out of body experiences and he's finding it difficult to define physical locations from non physical locations. In one instance, he says, I entered a reality frame and landed on a platform of some sort and was immediately approached by two entities who looked like they had physical bodies and tried to lead him away and place handcuffs on him. Seemed to think that it was a physical part of their reality frame. When that happened, he flew up in the air in front of them and then returned to this VR. So his question is, what can be going on here? It seems like I'm entering a physical place with tight rule set in some ways, but not in others. In both situations, it did not feel like I had manifested a physical body, although I am unsure how clear my sense of that would be. Are there physical places like our reality frame or non physical? And how would that work?
Okay. There's another option here. You're thinking of tight rule sets are physical kind of places, virtual realities. And then there's loose rule sets like the dream reality that you can still interact, but the rule sets are much looser. So you can fly and teleport and do all kinds of things you don't do here. You can appear and disappear in and out of various realities, and it all seems kind of not quite as strongly physical as it does here. But there's another set of things going on, and you appearing on a platform and being handcuffed and wanting to be taken away kind of fits this third category. And that is, think of your out of bodies as a single player virtual reality game. Now, single player virtual reality games can be very realistic. It's not a big game. It's not like there's millions of players in it. There isn't. There's just you. You're the only player. All the other characters are NPCs, non-player characters. In other words, they're played by the computer. They're played by the larger consciousness system. And they set up a situation for you to interact with. Okay, so think of yourself as in a classroom. And this classroom, is about growing up and evolving. And you come to class one day and there you are standing on a platform and these people come up and put handcuffs on you and want to take you away. What do you do? Well, it's a choice, right? This is a choice. What do you do? And you could have many reactions to that choice. You could be terrified and draw your weapon, draw your magical, lightsaber from your side and, chop them all apart. You could jump up in the air like you did and disappear, go someplace else. You could say, okay, and put out your hands and let them put the cuffs on and be curious to see, well, where are they going to take me? What is this all about? You could end up then with another whole part of the story, was what happens to you after they take you to wherever it is they're going to take you. Who knows where that story may go? You see, so you have lots of choices of things that you can do. And those choices have a lot to do with, your level of fear and the level of comfort that you have, the level of security and confidence that you have. So it's just an experience that won't happen to you here. Well, not unless you commit some kind of terrible crime and they're out in the woods trying to escape and the police are trying to get you and they put handcuffs on you. Maybe it could happen here, but it's unlikely. So when you get in this single player game and you're out of body, you get to have experiences that you wouldn't have here. You should just experience them. Have the confidence that whatever it is, you can deal with it. And maybe what you do at first is just disappear. Say, well, it doesn't look friendly. Handcuffs aren't exactly the same as a handshake, so I really don't want to get involved in this story. So you just disappear, teleport someplace, as you did, go up and away. That was one choice. Another would be to follow the game and say, oh, I wonder what happens next. And you'd get more choices. So when you just escape, then you terminate that game If you go with that game, then you get a whole bunch more choices. So instead of thinking of it as somehow a real physical reality, like physical realities are somehow more real than the others, think of it as all of it is just virtual reality. The physical reality is a virtual reality. The dream reality is a virtual reality. The single player game is another virtual reality. It's all just virtual reality. It just has better graphics or less graphics. It has more or less detail. It's got other people or players in it, NPCs or other players. It's just different, but it's all virtual reality. And in a virtual reality, you get to make choices. And you get to evolve or de-evolve by the quality of your choices. So it's, you know, I don't know. I don't really want to give you any particular advice of what to do or what not to do, but it's just another virtual reality. Okay, now this reality that we live in, we call our physical universe, is another virtual reality. And this is where we live. And if somebody comes to put handcuffs on us here, we should be concerned because it's liable to change the rest of our life, you see. So if we are out of body and something happens like that, we should just figure it's a single player game and maybe we should go see what it's all about, because we know we can always just disappear. We can always just come back to this reality because this is our home reality. We can always escape. That's always, the little escape button is always right there in front of our finger. We can just always reach out and punch that button and we're away. So it's a little different than here. But because it's so realistic that you think of it as the same as here. Oh, this is a physical reality. What if they take me away and put me in a jail and I can't get out or something terrible happens? Well, that's confusing your main reality, virtual reality, with that virtual reality. And not being confused is maybe what your lesson is all about. Not confusing the two. So who knows what your lesson is? There may be many different kinds of lessons in there for you. So just explore it is what I would do. Just explore it and see where it takes you.
Thank you, Tom. Interesting answer. Boris, you're next with your question. Thank you.
So my question was about this rule set into that physical matter reality. I've noticed that whenever I get out of my environment and whenever I get into like meeting other beings, I can see I would say, my level of consciousness really decrease. I don't have the same intuitions. I don't have the same clarity. And so I was very, very curious to hear about your experience because I could see at the immersive how basically you're shifting, Tom. So yeah, I would be very curious about how do you deal with that.
Okay, tell me a little more about when you get out, how and where you don't have the same feelings, where you feel like you have lost some of your understanding. Where is this getting out?
My point is that, for instance, this afternoon I was doing a very cool, I don't know how to say it in English, basically, this kind of new culture, for the ground. Anyway, doesn't matter. And the thing that I could really see that the whole day, my level of consciousness, my clarity, my capacity to be loved and have the right information was like getting lower and lower and lower, and I was getting more and more tired. And so I'm a bit surprised how basically when I'm into a group, basically I'm losing a lot of clarity and I'm losing my intuition. And so, yeah, as I'm starting to work more and more with people, healings, coaching, I'm very curious to find solution for that, to not get impacted too much by the field of others.
Okay. So when you get out into the world with other people and interact with other people, you find that it has an effect on you. You're not the same as you were before. And if you're by yourself or alone, then you feel steady and everything is the way it should be. But you get out with other people and it kind of deteriorate a bit. Is that what's going on,
Yeah,
Boris?
there's kind of this, this resonance effect. A lot of people talk about vibration, resonance. I kind of have the feeling that basically, uh, yeah, it's basically the thing which is a bit bothering me is that I'm losing a lot of clarity when I'm with other beings, and I'm losing my connection, I would say. It's not that, but I would say I'm way less connected, and yeah, way less intuition, way less clarity, and I can see I'm getting into this fatigue, which was not the case before. And
Okay. I think that what you need to do is to, now that you're aware of it and you're aware of the feeling and you're aware of the phenomena, you need to do more of it. You need to get out with people. It's not something to avoid. It's something to grow through. In other words, it's something to master, not something to avoid. So it's not about putting up walls or blocks or things to avoid that interference. It's to be around other people, connect with those other people, and at the same time have clarity in your own mind. And to do that, you need to be aware of that clarity, feel that clarity, kind of be in touch with yourself. And once you feel that, okay, I'm in touch, I'm here, now I'm going to go up and I'm going to meet people and I'm going to talk with them. And while you're talking to them, every few seconds, you can take a little fraction of a second out to check that clarity. And if it starts to wane, well, then put a little more effort into finding that clarity again, and then go back to talking with them. In other words, what you're learning to do is integrate two different spaces in your mind. One of them is the space that you live in when you meditate, when you're inside your own head. Okay, and that's clear. You've got that because you've done that a lot. You know exactly where that is, and you know where you are, and you feel very confident in that kind of serene space that you can stay in. And then you get out with people, and that gets mixed up. It starts to degrade. You don't feel it quite so much anymore. You start to lose that sense. Well, it's a matter of your attention. It's like if your attention focuses on A, you lose focus on B. And if you focus on B, your attention loses focus on A. So you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to parallel process and do both at the same time. You need to be able to stay in that still, quiet, serene place, while at the same time, you're involved with people who are not quiet and serene or still at all. They're all over the place. And they're maybe emotional or excited or whatever. And you need to be able to operate, to connect, and be a part of both at the same time. So I think what you're feeling is it's not something to avoid or to figure out how to get rid of. It's something to embrace and learn how to deal with. You see, so it's something I would say to step into and be able to do both. And it'll take some work, but I think you'll find that it won't take you that long. I suspect within a month or so, you'll be able to do both. You'll be able to interact with those people and connect with them and still maintain the clarity of your state. And you'll be able to do both better than you did either one of them before. So, your clarity will even be more clear now and more solid and more robust. And your ability to interact and connect with other people and to be empathetic and to feel their feelings and to know where they are, that will get better. To connect with them, that'll get better as well. So my prediction is that within a month or so of you just practicing, doing both at the same time, you will end up better at each, and you'll be able to do them simultaneously. It's just kind of the next step in your growth path. So next steps in the growth path usually hit us as problems. Things aren't quite working right. You know, it's a bit of a squeeze. We wonder what's going on, but often, you know, that's the way they present themselves, because we're a little out of our comfort zone when that happens. You just need to enlarge your comfort zone to take in both. So that's what I would, you know. Now, in general, you know, I would probably tell, if another person asked me the same question, I would probably give them a very different answer. So it's just kind of, you know, your answer, Boris, because I know the you know, kind of the quality of your clarity and how important it is to you. You've worked very hard to get that clarity, and it's not something that you want to see dissipate, but it won't dissipate. It'll just get more robust. It'll get stronger and clearer, and you'll be able, instead of I can be in kind of state A, where I'm real clear and everything, but I'm by myself, or I can be in state B, where I'm with people, but I'm not clear. You will have both. You will be able to be with people and be clear. Mm-hmm. So it's like a new challenge that's presenting itself to you, that it won't be that hard for you to figure that out. You just have to hang on to both states and integrate the two of them, so that you can live in both worlds with equal ease.
Cool. Thank you, Tom.
All right, Tom. Our next question is from Laura and Oliver. What does the LCS consider a success of the run simulation? How many IUOCs have to evolve or reach a certain level for the program to end?
For the program to end, that's puts a whole different light on it. Okay, and basically the LCS just wants us to be trying, working on it. You know, we're in an effort to evolve. If we de-evolve a little, well, okay, now we can kind of stop that decline and then start evolving again. You know, the system isn't sitting there saying, "Oh, that's starting to de-evolve. Might as well cancel this thing." You know, we are doing what we do. We may evolve, we may de-evolve. We may take 3 steps forward and 1 step backwards, or even 3 steps backwards and 1 step forwards. But we have potential. As long as we have the potential to evolve and grow, then the system is interested in letting us do whatever it is we do. The system would only get to the point where it would want to pull the plug as if we don't have any more potential. There's not even a potential to grow up, you see. And I have been in some places that were pretty not grown up. You know, they were very high on the entropy scale, and they were still chugging along. You know, the plug wasn't pulled on them, and I think it's because they still had the potential to turn around and do better. And as long as that potential was there, then the system just lets us chug on however it is we do. Also, there is no end. Now, if pulling the plug wasn't because we were so bad at what we were doing, you know, pull the plug because the system gives up on us, you know, it's not likely to do that. Like I say, it's interested in the potential, not necessarily on what we've actualized out of that potential to this point, because evolution is still in front of us yet, and we can always change. But if the pulling the plug was on the other end, oh, we're done now. You know, we've evolved, everybody's grown up. Now we can pull the plug on that because it doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Well, that's not likely either, because it's not just a fixed number of IUOCs that are going through this program until they all grow up. And once everybody's graduated, you might as well close the school because there isn't anybody else coming. It's not like that. There's always new IUOCs into the mix. There's always there's always beginners. There's always people who are on their first incarnation rather than their 1,001st or 10,001st. So the system is always has new coming in, and we're not anywhere near a point where we use up all the possibilities that we have and all the potential that we have. We probably haven't tapped but a tiny tiny fraction of our potential at this point. So I hope I've answered that question. I'm not exactly sure what they were looking for with that answer, but hopefully I've answered it.
I suppose it was kind of, is there ever an end to the evolution?
Yeah.
Um,
Evolution is an open-ended thing. You know, we say, well, okay, human beings, we started out as what, single-cell things to multi-cell things, and progressed up through things like jellyfish and fish, and then we got to, well, I guess those were vertebrates, and then we got the mammals, and then we went through all the small mammals and big mammals and lizards, and here we are. Okay, Homo sapien has come out of the woods, and here we are. And we kind of in our mind think, well, okay, we've arrived. This is the end. Homo sapiens, we're done. But that's not the case. Look at Homo sapiens, 10 million years from now? What are they going to be like? Well, who knows? But evolution just keeps on keeping on. As long as there are ways for us to change, new states, new possibilities for us to evolve into that actually work better for us, then we'll continue to evolve. And our evolution is dependent on the environment. If the environment changes, then things that work and don't work change. Something that didn't work before might start to work if the environment changes. And we are pretty good at changing our environment. We Homo sapiens are probably the best ever at changing our environment. And as we change our own environment, we change our own potentiality for further evolution. And where does that stop? I don't think it stops. It just keeps on chugging. It's an open-ended, series of self-change that I don't think has an end. I think you always can do better. There's always improvements you can make. And then if you get major changes in environment, oh, wow, now you get a whole, you get to start over in a new environment. So I don't see that it's something that we're going to run out of steam.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Michelle.
Thank you, Donna. Hi, everyone. Hi, Tom. My question is around the done reality. I find that reality quite interesting because I think the fact that they are used to a reality where the average of the quality of the consciousness is higher than ours, I think they at least I see the potential for them to have some lessons to teach us from that perspective. And I would like to see if you could help me to create a picture of their reality. I know that's a very open question, so the things that I thought that could help to create this picture would be to talk about the technology. For example, how does it compare with ours? Do they have cars as like ours, or they have fancier or more sophisticated or even simpler? What about the society? Do they have governments, nations, schools, religions, families? And the third aspect would be the rule set. Is it the same, tighter, looser? So I'm trying to get a big picture of their reality.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, what Michael's talking about is what I call the done reality. That's a reality where you end up, if you think you're done, and done evolving. That is, you've evolved as much as is possible to evolve. And from just the last question, you can see that I said that we don't get to the point that there's no place for us to evolve. There's always a place for us to evolve. But if you think that there isn't, you think you're done, then that's probably because you have evolved fairly highly. You feel evolved, and you are not aware. I guess where you don't see is you don't see the places where you have room for improvement. You feel like you've improved everything that's possible, and there is no more room for improvement. Well, that's a belief. There is always room for improvement, things that you can grow. There's always people that you can help. There's always ways that you can contribute. But I will share my experience in the done reality, and it isn't nearly as complex as what you're thinking. It was it wasn't so much like, I mean, it is a virtual reality, but it didn't really have as much sense of physical stuff or structure as it was social. It was a social structure. It was beings, people, and they could appear to be really anything that they wanted to appear to be. They were interacting with each other, and the interactions, it was like this huge social gathering where there were lots and lots of different groups that you could be a part of, lots of groups that you could come in and say hello and get into their conversation. And you got to wander among those until you found something that you liked, or you found a group that suited you, and then you kind of became a part of that group. So it was more of a social space than it was a physical space. I didn't really notice a lot of infrastructure or physical stuff. I didn't really notice that, people lived in houses or really had an environment to deal with. It was just a social space. It was a space where people interacted with each other. And in general, the interactions were polite and open and nice. There weren't many people there who were, nasty or upset or angry. You didn't run into that much at all. Most everybody there had kind of outgrown that. So the people were nice to each other, but eventually what I found is that some people thought that they were more evolved than other people, and there were groups and status, and people thought they were at the top of that chain, and that others weren't, and looked down their nose at others. So there got to be a little stratification, and once that happened, they tended to realize that ego had come back, and then they left to go get back into a more physical reality where they were more challenged than they were here. Because this is not a very challenging reality and a done reality. Nobody's going to push your buttons or go off and give you a hard time or be rude to you or something like that. This is a more genteel, more social and polite kind of a space. But it was all social space, not so much infrastructure. Beings interacting with each other. Maybe you can think of this huge cocktail party where there aren't any cocktails. It's just all people standing around, chit-chatting and talking about things that matter to them and what they're interested in and who they are and where they're going and what they're trying to do. So it was a big social space, is what it was. And I didn't notice that anybody ever stopped to eat or had to excuse themselves to go to the bathroom, or none of that was really going on. It was just social space, interaction. And, the time that I spent there, I was mainly interested in the quality of the people and what they were doing, why they were doing it. And it took me quite a while before I figured out that it was just a social space and people were interacting with each other, discussing, comparing notes, talking about who they were and where they were going and what they were doing. But you had, I hate to use the word infinite, but there was a huge selection of different groups that you could fit into or not fit into. So that was my experience. And then I began to see that their ego was developing in some of the groups, some more than others. And as ego would start to develop, let's say even within an individual, it would start to spread to other individuals. Other individuals get pulled into it. And pretty soon you'd have one group who felt superior to the other groups. They were the ones who were really, really done. These others just thought they were done. And it was that kind of a thing. And then after a while, those people realized that they were de-evolving, that the ego was not good. It was self-centered. And then they tend to drop out and disappear and leave that reality and go back to one where they had more challenges. Because if they didn't keep working on reducing their entropy would start to grow. That was kind of the conclusion. If you don't keep working on reducing your entropy will just start to grow. So if you're in this social situation where you're not challenged to grow, where you're not challenged to make good choices, where there's not a whole lot of bad choices to make, there's then you don't have much challenge. Well, what happens is you start to de-evolve. You have to put energy in. You can't just stay. You can't say, well, I'm done. And now you just stay that way forever. Eventually, you're going to start to de-evolve because you're no longer putting energy into evolving. And then I look at the physics part of it, and a lot of physics is the same way, particularly the physics of entropy. If you're talking about lowering the entropy of a system, second law of thermodynamics will tell you have to keep putting energy in. If you're going to continue to lower entropy, that requires energy input. If you don't have any energy input, then the system automatically will increase its entropy. So I think we work the same way. We have to keep trying. We have to be aware. We have to be aware of our choices. When we stop being aware of our choices and we just start being without trying, we start to de-evolve. Slowly, very slowly, but we start to de-evolve. Arrogance starts to come back. Self-centeredness starts to come back. Ego starts to creep in. And with that, fear starts to creep in. Maybe we're not as done as those other people, maybe it's us that are not done. And then we have to have ego that pretends that we're better, whatever. So it wasn't a space of automobiles and cars and even food or anything. It was just a big social space. And time didn't seem to be going by real quickly. It's not like anybody was in a hurry to do anything. It just was I don't know, kind of a timeless place for that matter. It wasn't like there were any clocks on the wall. It was just people interacting with other people.
So would you say that it's sort of accurate to say that it would be like a 3D chat room or something closer to
Yeah, something like a 3D chat room. That may be a way to say it. Yeah, people were there in body, people were talking with other people. It wasn't just like you were typing on your tablet or something. It was people talking to people. Yeah, like a big 3D chat room sort of thing. And nobody got tired and had to leave to, go to the bathroom. Everybody was just there, they didn't have bodily issues, but they interacted with each other with form, maybe just out of habit. Maybe it was just their habit to interact that way with form. But it was that sort of a space where there was very little challenge. I mean, it was interesting, and there were a lot of interesting people there. There were a lot of interesting people, a lot of different viewpoints. So it wasn't like there wasn't anything to do. It wasn't a boring space. It was just not a challenging space, unless you made challenges out of it, unless you took some effort to challenge yourself. And mostly the people there didn't seem to do that. They didn't seem to challenge themselves. They were just there. They were done. They were done with challenges.
Thank you.
All right, our next question, Tom, comes in a written question from EC. How do we find the energy for life, the energy to participate in a love-based way? In so many ways, we engage more because we are fearful of the consequences. But when we let go of this fear, there is relief, and often it is then hard to engage again without fear because it was so exhausting to engage in the first place. So to clarify, how do we find the energy to fully and completely participate in life? without being motivated by the stick in the carrot and stick metaphor.
Well, what often happens, and I'm sure that's the source of this particular question, is that you do a transition between two different states of being. And one is that you're full of fear and you're full of ego and you're in the mix and you're you're going, you're struggling, and life is fear-based, as he says, and you have all these relationships and it's just busy and it's dramatic. It's living in a soap opera, this constant struggle. And then you grow up past that. And then when you grow up past that point and you look back at it and you see all that struggle and all that, unpleasantness going on and people not being nice to people, and you kind of look back at it and you go, ooh, that doesn't feel good, it doesn't look good. I don't want to be a part of that. And then you kind of set yourself apart. Now you're out here kind of on the sideline looking at everybody else and seeing all the fear interactions that you remember having, because it wasn't that long ago that you were in that same mix. And you don't feel like you really want to get back into that again because it's kind of yucky in there with all that fear. And that's a reaction that a lot of people have. It's kind of a transition, and you won't stay in that a long time. But for a while, it's all right to sit out for just a little bit and to look around and see what you see and get an understanding about how people work and what people are, and just absorb that as an outsider for a while, just watching relationships, seeing the interactions, feeling the feelings. And if that takes you, a month or 2 months or a year or whatever, then being that kind of outsider spectator, but not really a part of it, is not a bad place to be, but it should be a temporary place to be. That's not where you want to live your life. You don't want to live your life as outside on the margins looking in at all of these dysfunctional people. Yuck, I don't want to get mixed up in that. That's not really what you want to be. You do need to get mixed up in that, but you need to get mixed up with it in a positive way, not in a way where you're engaging in the fear stuff, and in the anger and in the upset and in the gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands. You don't want to engage it at that level. That's what you used to do. And you're worried about going back to that. Well, you won't go back to that. If you've really grown up, and this is not just an intellectual thing, and you really have changed, then you won't go back to that. And you'll find that you can interact with those people in a caring way. Well, the interaction may be limited. You may not become but so close to them, but from their perspective, you become even more useful because you're this little voice of clarity, this person of peace, and the person who smiles. You're this person who is positive in their life now. So you become even more meaningful and helpful to those people because you are with them. You are engaged with them. So it's not only good for them, but it's good for you because you realize that, okay, people are a mixed bag. There's some nice things about almost everybody, and there's some not nice things about almost everybody. There's the fear stuff and the ego stuff, and that's kind of icky and sticky. But there's also the caring stuff and the love stuff, and people have that too. So people are a mixed bag of caring and loving and ego and fear. And you just need to interact with those people in a positive way. So if they start off on something that you really do disagree with, or you see it's just their fear, you don't tell them, oh, that's just your fear. You should stop that. Don't tell them how to be. Don't tell them how to act or what to do. Or, people don't want lectures, but just let it go. Say something positive. Take what you hear and find something positive in it and talk about that. So you can find the positiveness in people, and the stuff that's negative, you can either ignore it, just let it go right by and change the subject, or put a positive twist on it. Yeah, that's true, and all those things are true. But, those guys are doing the best they can. Yeah, it's their situation, it's what they're in it, and so you add something positive to it. So the key is just stay positive. Don't get sucked in to the negativity. And if you get sucked into the negativity, that's because you haven't let go of it yet. You still got it. So once you have let go of the negativity, you won't get sucked into it. But you can still relate to those people. You can still care about those people because they have good sides. They're struggling. They're trying to do the best they can with what they've got. All right, what they've got has some problems, has some fear in it. But you can still care about those people and you can still interact with them. Now, if they're just so fearful and so unpleasant, well, then you just avoid them. But I'm talking about people that are part of your life that you can't just avoid, your parents, your children, your boss, your coworkers, all these people, you just can't walk away and avoid them. Well, then you need to learn to interact with them only positively. If they're going to rant about some negative thing, then, you can listen patiently and then change the subject or move it to a different place. And you just don't participate in the negativity. You're always positive. So that's how you deal with that. And it is a transition. And I don't think that it's a good idea just to jump back in immediately. If you feel like now you've grown up some, take a little breather, look around, see, watch, observe how people react. That will help you solidify your own growth because you'll see all the things you used to do in those people. And it'll help you firm up your own sense of growth by watching them. But then don't just stay out on the sideline. Don't live in that lonely space where, you've outgrown all your friends, you've outgrown all your coworkers and your family, and you're sitting out on the margins, not interacting with anybody. That's not good either. Most of your lessons are going to be in relationship, mixing up with other people, connecting. That's important. It's an important part of what we do as humans. We interact with people. And it's easier to just sit out on the margins and be an observer. But what happens then is if you sit out and always are an observer, you have a tendency to start growing your own ego as better than. I'm not like those people. Those people are the problem. People like me are the answer. And all of that starts to lead to not such a good place all by itself. So as you separate yourself from others, you tend to de-evolve in your lack of relationship. So that's not healthy. So you got to get back in there and deal with those coworkers and deal with that family and deal with all the people you have to deal with, but do it positively. Find some way to do it positively. And often what that means is you spend a lot more time listening than you spend talking. Become a good listener. And if somebody's going off on something that upsets them, some fear they have, often you can just tell them a little something that makes them feel better. Even if it doesn't help them out a whole lot, it just makes them feel better. Give them something positive. So I'm sure that's where that question is coming from. Somebody's stuck in that in-between space. They've kind of drifted out there into the margins. They're looking back going, ick. Ooh, look at all that fear stuff back there. Ooh, I don't want to get back into that. And they don't really know what to do next. So take that perspective, learn from it, but then go back in and join it and be something positive in it. Be a positive aspect in that mess. You have to embrace other people. You have to embrace, your reality. You have to interact. Staying out on the margins as a superior person who doesn't, stoop to, to deal with things like that, that is not a good place to be. That will just put you down another dysfunctional path, different than the one you just got out of, but another dysfunctional path. So that's the answer to that. It's a really good question. Sit out for a while, but then jump back in.
That's a great answer, Tom. And there's a quote there: be a positive influence in that mess. All right.